All right, today we're going to talk about a story that is genuinely one of the most unsettling, most bizarre cases to come out of modern India. It's a story that really makes you question everything you think you know about family, about faith, and about the human mind. This is the story of the Burari Deaths. 11. I want you to just let that number sink in for a second, because 11, it's the heart of this entire mystery. 11 family members. We're talking grandparents, parents, kids, 3 whole generations, and all of them on the exact same night met the exact same unbelievable fate. So, let's set the scene. It's July 1st, 2018. We're in Burari, which is this really crowded, bustling part of Delhi. And for all intents and purposes, it's just another Sunday morning, People are getting on with their day. But what was about to be discovered inside one particular house, on a pretty unremarkable corner, well, it wasn't just horrifying. It was something that would send shockwaves across the entire country. Okay, so Section 1, a morning of horror. Let's talk about what the neighbors found, because that's where this whole nightmare begins. The Bhatia family, they ran a local grocery store, and they were always punctual. So when the shop didn't open on time, a neighbor, just doing a friendly check-in, went over to their house. And what he walked into was just the start of it all. So what did he find? Inside the house? It's almost hard to describe. 10 members of the family hanging from a metal grill in the ceiling, just hanging there, arranged in a kind of circle. The grandmother, the matriarch of the family, she was the 11th. She was found in another room. But the scene, it was so bizarre, so ritualistic. Every single one of them was blindfolded. Their mouths were covered. Their hands were tied behind their backs. I mean, you look at a scene like that and you know right away, this is not straightforward. This is something else entirely. And then police find this. A note on the wall that says, "Soon we will achieve salvation." I mean, think about that. In a scene of absolute horror, the final message isn't one of pain or sadness. It's a message of hope. It's the first huge clue that this wasn't what it looked like. It pointed towards some kind of spiritual motive, this idea that what they did was a path to something better. So how on earth does a family get to this point? To really even begin to understand it, we have to look at who these people were. So this next part is all about the family's secret, the deep, dark secret hidden behind the facade of a perfect family. And that's the thing that's so crazy about this case. To everyone who knew them, the Bhatias were, and I'm quoting here, the ideal family. Seriously, they were popular, they ran a couple of successful businesses, they had money, they were a fixture in the community. There were 0 red flags. No one saw this coming. Not even a hint. So let's just quickly break down who we're talking about to put some names to this tragedy. You had Narayani Devi, the matriarch. She was 77. Then there were her 2 sons, Lalit and Bhuvanesh, and of course their wives. And then you had the kids, the grandchildren. So you've got this entire household, a full 3 generations, from teenagers all the way up to a grandmother, all living together. A big, seemingly happy family. Okay, so the police are looking at this, and it's a total mystery. There's no forced entry, no sign of a struggle. Nothing was stolen. So what is it? A mass murder? A mass suicide pact? It just didn't make sense. But the answer, the thing that would blow this case wide open, was actually right there in the house. And here it is again, that number, 11. This time, it's not the number of victims, it's the number of years. Police found a stack of diaries, and the entries went back for 11 years, an entire decade plus, documenting in meticulous detail this secret belief system that no one outside the family knew about. So, what was in these diaries? Well, this is where it gets really strange. The diaries were filled with instructions. Instructions the family believed were coming from beyond the grave, specifically from the spirits of the family patriarch, Narayani Devi's husband, who had actually passed away about 10 years before. And who was receiving these messages? His youngest son, Lalit. He claimed his dead father was speaking directly through him. And these diaries weren't just vague spiritual thoughts. No, they were a literal instruction manual. They laid out step by step how to perform something they called the banyan tree ritual. And here's the absolute kicker. They didn't believe they were going to die. The diaries made it clear. They thought that if they followed all these steps perfectly, the spirit of their patriarch would swoop in and save them at the very last second. It wasn't suicide in their minds. It was a test of faith to achieve moksha, or salvation. Right. So how? Just how does this happen? How do you get 11 people, including smart, educated, successful adults, to all go along with something so incredibly dangerous? I mean, that's the big question, right? The one that everyone, from police to psychologists, was trying to answer. Well, the main theory that investigators settled on is something called shared psychotic disorder. It's a pretty rare condition, also known as folie à plusieurs, which is French for madness of several. The basic idea is that one person, and in this case all signs point to Lalit, has a delusion. For him, it was believing his dead father was talking to him. And then, because he's in this tight-knit, influential position within the family, he slowly, over years, manages to transmit that delusion to everyone else. Eventually, they don't just believe him, they believe it's their own reality too. But, even with that official theory, it doesn't just neatly wrap everything up. There are still some pretty big questions that just hang in the air. For example, people point to the knots used. They were tied in a really specific, almost professional way. Could the family have done that themselves? And then there's the biggest question of all for me. 11 people. You're telling me not one person, not one teenager, not one adult had a moment of doubt and tried to back out? It's just hard to wrap your head around. And of course, a story like this doesn't just end when the police close the case. The aftermath, the legacy of what happened in that house, is a whole other chapter. It left a permanent mark, not just on the neighborhood, but on the entire country. And that brings us to the house itself. You can feel the impact of what happens just by looking at it. For a long, long time after the incident, it just stood there, empty. A dark spot in the neighborhood. It became this kind of chilling landmark, a place people would cross the street to avoid, especially at night. And you know what happens with stories like these? The facts start to blur with myth and folklore. The Burari Deaths case has absolutely become a modern urban legend in India. People whisper about it. You hear stories from locals who say they can hear strange noises at night or that you can still see marks on the ceiling. It's transformed from a news story into one of the country's most terrifying folktales. So, in the end, after you look at all the evidence, the diaries, the theories, you're left with this one deeply unsettling question. The Bhatia family, in their own minds, weren't doing something crazy. They believed they were on a holy mission following the guidance of a loved one they trusted completely. And their story really forces us, all of us, to think about it. Where is that line? At what point does powerful, deeply held faith cross over and become a deadly, all-consuming delusion?